started the recording. Hi and welcome, guys. SUSE QE Tools workshop on the start of February 2026. I would like to discuss the roadmap with you. The last time we had the roadmap, I would actually take a look into the archive. So we had that on the start of December. That means we might have a little bit slower period over the Christmas vacation period absence, but still a lot of interesting things. The very first thing that I can show you is basically the incorporation of the results from last workshop. Because I think that we had the review of the product vision. So thank you guys for the insightful feedback I received at this time. And then what I did is I reiterated that, and I also asked the people of the team what they think about the suggestions that we received or the ideas that I have. And we refurbished this section describing like our main product vision, this team description, as well as the strategic focus. It might sound a bit like, marketing, but I've also heard sometimes the people say like, yeah, do you have a value proposition? And well, so this is why I'm exactly using that header so that we can feed the buzzword bingo expectations here. But I think there's actual merit to what we describe here. So for example, mentioning the value proposition for each persona, what can we offer? Just one example, for release teams, with reliable, reproducible green light signals that reduce the release day anxiety on the different levels, like, sleep maintenance updates multiple times a day, tumbleweed snapshot once a day, and for other products like Leap or SLE, then of course for all those weekly or monthly milestones. The rest is mostly unchanged. There's only one other thing which I tried to make a bit more clear, yet not incorporated on the wiki yet, which is the description of the scope of the individual teams, because we have two teams, QE Dev and QE Infra. And I've only recorded a ticket yet to update this description, and I've brought some thoughts in there, but I didn't finish that, so this is why we didn't want to have the wiki updated yet. Now, for the roadmap. The top level view is unchanged, so what we see here is still the same sagas. We have the saga here, which also shows up as high priority, inheriting from the subtask, and that is actually also how we should see it in our team, is the support switch to Gitty for OpenSUSE SUSE-based products, e.g. SLE 16, although SLE 16 in particular is already working for more than half a year just fine. The next edition was SL Micro 6.2, and what is currently in the work there is support for product development staging tests, replacing what is so far, for example, for OpenSUSE Factory, still done using OBS only and the OpenK integration in there. For OpenSUSE, so far there is a solution which was mostly created and is currently maintained by Santiago Sarte. And I had a talk with him about the solution for staging pull requests on source OpenSUSE.org. And we agreed that this is a good short-term solution, but the long-term is, as we had planned for some months, to have that covered with QMBot. And this is also what we need for the SLE-based product development staging support. And that's why we are currently working on both of those areas and exploring possibilities to either skip the necessity for a dashboard or come up with the equivalent in the OpenSUSE infrastructure. Timster?
Yeah, so for the factory side, obviously we're also busy with the migration to Gitty. We are currently just working together with Adrian to get the staging generally to work, because what is currently provided, the staging is limited, let's call it like that. So QE obviously will have to work with whatever the staging is coming up in the end, and we
Yes.
expect that the other products will actually take the same staging approach. So we really try to make now a staging workflow that works for all products. So it's probably a little bit more feature complete than what has been implemented so far.
Yes.
But in best case, we would have one solution that fits all,
Yeah, that
which
sounds
also
great.
applies to the QE part in the end, of course.
Yes, and that's nice, and that would fit our decision to say that we will also not invest in separate tooling, but really adapt QMBot to be able to work on that for basically like any Gitty any Gitty project. So after something like the actual operating system products that could also be adopted, hopefully for something like development projects, where, just one example, where you would say maybe you want to run OpenGate tests based on Devil languages Perl submissions just within that submission cycle, that might also work. The short term where we are trying it out and trying to get it to work with is the slash 16.1 workflows, because they are basically the Git pull requests are already used, but um, do not have the full automation for test coverage. All right, the second one is full traceability, paper trail, and test reproducibility. That one had a lot of work done on the side of just being able to store and process and keep as well as archive test results for a sufficiently long period and be able to work with that. And now we can look into the more maybe more interesting and maybe more visual parts, which are how can you actually make use of that feature so that we can cover a use case like the ASSLE maintenance update that was released 1.5 years ago. Customers ask about that, about what was tested. Was it tested at all? Could the bug have been found? Was it found? And all those questions. And but finding answers to that based on OpenGate test results. And the third saga is the support SUSE Prague Office move, which gained a lot of traction again in the past weeks. So that's also why this was demanding a lot of attention, because the actual physical move of machines happened for most QE machines in that time period, and we needed to prepare the network config, support the actual move, as in where should which machine go, what are the requirements regarding the network, remote control capabilities, updating, keeping entries up to date, talking with the loaners of the individual machines so that all those machines which are already there and set up are ensured to be usable, as well as in preparation for what is still going on. There are some machines which have been moved and are not yet fully verified. What comes as an important step afterwards is that there can always be some during these hectic times of moving, there can be some things which are short-term solutions, and we need to ensure that they are proper long-term sustainable solutions, because we know exactly that in some months we will be surprised by something else where we need a stable base to be built upon. And even though I'm not hoping that we will have a data center move in 2026, but I want to be ready for anything like that based on my experience, what happened in the recent past. So let's take a look into the resolved tasks of the last time period. And we had this last roadmap session. Let me take a look. So when was that? This was on the 12th of December. So what we can do is I can put this date in here. and we have 149 tickets resolved. So given that this was a Christmas vacation absence period, you cannot really see that. So there was a lot of things that we did complete in that time period, which is great to see. So let's start with the red stuff. This is high regression and crashes. So often, reactive work, as in we had some problems with certain workers having hardware problems as well as software problems or booking problems where we see some overload of the systems, and that can depend on the actual load induced by OpenKA tests. So we try to look into limiting that, having that under control, but also in some cases it's actually just handling the alert to say actually we are fine to cope with a higher load and the alerts might be a bit too restrictive. Similar, there was also we had 502 errors both on OSD as well as also on O3, which is something which is actually still being worked on. On O3 in particular, we have AI-related bot traffic that we need to handle. And we do that with Anubis, which we already have in place since multiple weeks, but that still needs some tweaking because sometimes it's also blocking out other legitimate traffic. So sometimes it's blocking a bit too much and sometimes it's blocking a bit too little. So, a bit of tweaking. So, what else? We created Anubis blocks on IRC. Okay, Timstar, could you please create a ticket for that, and then we will try to find a better way, because actually the API should be fully usable. So maybe the IRC bot is, I don't know what interface it's using. If it's like scraping the web UI, then maybe we can find a better way.
Okay. I'll also get in touch with the Darkstar, the maintainer of the bot.
Yeah, that would
I'll
be
make a
cool.
ticket to get him in there as well.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. So maybe it's actually about the .json documents on OpenKA, because I think that those would also be blocked, but maybe we wouldn't need to block those. Okay, there was a new domain which we created for bare metal testing, because we already have separate VLANs, but having all machines in the same domain can then make it not really obvious if there are problems, especially because I envisioned that sometime in the future, IT will, or actually they should, from my perspective, harden the access to certain systems, in particular bare metal testing, which are, let's say, less secure machines or intentionally less secure machines, as in you want to test for some security vulnerabilities and if a bug fix is effective. And then, if because those machines are more vulnerable or less secure, they are already in a separate network, and then this network should also be more secured, as in preventing some level of network traffic to the outside or from the outside. Because that will cause restrictions in the network traffic, and because this can lead to, I don't know, OpenKA test failures or some weird behaviors, at least the very least that we should do is making it clear from the FQDNs, the domain names of the machines, that they're actually in a separate network and not the same. So it's not QE Prague 2 SUSE org and QE Prague 3 SUSE org, but BMT for bare metal testing. So what else? Shai-Hulud is back. We managed to resolve that one. In the OpenQA project, be able to add new API keys via API. So that was actually a request coming from the Debian guys maintaining their OpenKA instance. And when they want to make it easy for contributors to set up their own mini OpenKA instance, they are using the fake authentication. Okay, they can do that, but then it's a bit inconvenient how to create API keys, because there is a default key and secret pair which expires after 24 hours. And we have this a bit hacky or crude way how to inject a new key and secret pair over SQL commands. So why not use the API to do a full support? And actually, in this ticket, which I worked on, this is not only adding new API keys, but the full CRUD flow, so create, read, update, and delete cycle. We are working in the global domain of AI. We have the OpenK MCP endpoint, and we are trying to make that more visible, more approachable, trying out different approaches, also thinking about SUSE internal deployments where we don't want to have it fully connected to a public instance. So we are working in this domain and trying out different angles. For example, trying out a chat-based web system that can connect to the MCP endpoint, but not everyone needing their own personal instance, but offering one for multiple people, as well as running that with local large language models or applicable solutions which are offered already on-premise by SUSE and interconnecting with those. In preparation of the upgrade of our infrastructure before the end of life of Leap 15.6, which we're currently still mostly running, we looked into which is the next best applicable target. So we did some analysis there, also considered something like Tumbleweed and Slow Roll or SLE, and we tried it out, and it turned out that Leap 16.0 is basically fine. We are missing some minor package adaptations, which we have solved meanwhile. There was also one package missing, which would be a problem for the web UI, which was dehydrated. But as a, nice coincidence, but also related, because we said yeah, okay, we would also need that. That was also submitted and is now in place for Leap 16. So we are good on that side. And then what I did is also upgrade the Postgres database to a more recent version. Actually, we already did that before upgrade to Postgres 17, but the changelog of Postgres 18 reads nicely, has promises about better performance. So why not do that? Because actually we have that version in Leap 15.6 and Leap 16. So we can already do that upgrade before we do the OS upgrade. And then we looked into archiving more job results by putting some results to archive. We started with that with the Spike Solution Timeboxed feature. And now we have a plan in our backlog to say, after we decided that, yeah, this is definitely feasible to do, we can do that. What this allows is that we already have the separation for results and archives since many years. And we can now use the archive more. And for example, for OpenK SUSE, what we did there is replace the archive file system, which I think in before was XFS. We replaced that with ButterFS and online compression. So for older archive results which you do not need to access that often, we can certainly live with this overhead, but have nicely compressible OpenK log files and test results, which we can then store for longer because we use less space. Also, I would like to mention that we have the automatic enforcement of strict and warnings. So that is something which OS audience kind of promised to already do, but it turned out that this is actually only the case depending on how you actually write a test module, and normally wouldn't be ensured. This also brought me to the false conclusion that we can actually remove the use strict and use warnings in OSADO test modules in all cases. And that was a false conclusion, because that is not automatically enforced in all cases. So what we did there is now offer basically two different ways. And this is also described well in the documentation. So let's see. Okay, I can't see that here, but basically there's one test flag here, which is enable modern Perl features, which one can do, and this automatically enables that for test modules. And the alternative is to do what the OpenKA documentation already correctly stated in before. So if we are taking a look for how to write test in a test module, this is the example and this is unchanged. If we do that, then this certainly works because module base already ensures strict and warnings for a self-contained module. But what is described here, alternative, you may set the test variable enable modern Perl features, and then this means that test modules would also do that automatically regardless on what base you use for inheritance. Oh, let's see. A one-line call to trigger OpenKA with scenario definitions from URL. Okay, I like that one. So that one, hopefully I will also be able to find a link to the according documentation. Let's see, this mentions here in installing. Okay, so let me show it in here. So the OpenKA CLI schedule command is able to trigger tests using a scenario definitions YAML file. And what you can see here and before that this was relying on a local checkout of this file. So the environment where you would call that, you would need this file and then it's evaluated and pushed to OpenKA. And what one can do now is leave this to OpenKA to do that. So this is what we can see here based on the example distribution. So that with one command of this, without needing access to the actual any checkout of a test distribution, one can schedule tests based on a scenario definition file, which can be a remote URL, and all those test parameters in case they are pointing to the actual test distribution. We see that mentioned here with the example distribution. And if we go into the example distribution, so then we see that in the, I thought we would be able to see that here in the GitHub action example, but logs have expired. Okay, sorry about that. So, oh, this was on June 2nd, 2025. Okay, no worries. Actually, if you want to try that out, then you can actually just use, let me remind you, that there's a create button and you can use example test to trigger that with scenario definitions. Okay, I think this is actually no, this is providing the scenario definitions document in place. No worries. I think we see it in the OpenKA and OpenKA test, but no, sorry. Actually, we factored that out into a separate ticket. So a one-line call, and we want to use the feature in the example distribution and OpenKA. So this is the next step which we want to do. What else? Increase worker capacity. Okay, I think I will come to that. We managed to do a bit more of code coverage for OpenKA. So we are quite near to the goal of having 100% statement coverage, which would be good because then we have an easier time doing code review because we know exactly that every code that is changed will also be ensured to be covered by tests. If the tests are good or not is a second question, but at least that one would ease development going forward. Then let's take a look into QA. So here is the decision for future runtime environment where we use Leap 15.6 so far. And as I said, we decided, I mean, in some cases we already use Tumbleweed, like for example, for CI container in some environments, and OpenQA, the open ecosystem on Tumbleweed as well as Slower is fully supported, but also on Leap 16.0, where we already built the packages for many, many months, even before the release of Leap 16.0. We decided that this is also what we want to use for our environments that we administrate, which is O3 and OSD. There were some problems. So, for example, just recently that proof incidents of QMBot would run. That was a regression that I introduced. And I think also this one was a regression that I introduced. But why did I introduce the regressions? Well, because I'm trying to fix other issues. Like there was some XML tree parse error. Okay, that one is actually only having some kind of, convoluted log, which should now be more readable. But also we had the problem that, for example, you can see here that with the introduction of new media and new settings in the metadata project, QMBot was then incorrectly parsing and concatenating the version and flavor. So we had something like /16.0v, which stands for version and online, which of course doesn't make sense. That should be /v16. So we fixed that. And with that also the /16.0 and also micro 6.2 increment as product increment tests as well as the incident tests look very good over the past weeks or 2 weeks. We did manage to have a 100% complete statement and branch coverage in QMBot, and given that there's so many recent works and also many more work planned for QMBot, needing to incorporate full support for kernel live patches, as well as the mentioned product development staging support, as well as support for like a generic Git project. And what else was there? I think other features that were requested. It's really helpful in the development to know that the coverage gives you a very good safety net in development. And I'm glad to see that in the past days there had already been multiple contributions, so not just from the QA infra team, but really from others that try out certain ideas, be it adding a new feature or refactoring the code in QMBot. So I appreciate those contributions, and I hope that the much better tests, which are also super fast, and style checks and all additional safety nets and guardrails which we have provided, helps contributors. Actually, I think it also does help very much with AI assisted coding, because there you just give really good guardrails to the AI and you can say implement something and then it will run into probably multiple style issues and multiple test failures, but then AI can just fix the issues itself and you can spend your time sipping coffee or sitting on the sofa and enjoying something else or focusing on other important problems in the meantime. Now, when we do that for QMBot, a little bit also should go into the direction of QM dashboard. This is an area where also I dove in personally a bit the past weeks, actually over Christmas vacation period. So this was a fun project by me to bring in some feature with little to no previous knowledge about the Vue framework or other things, how the dashboard is built. Well, I know Perl module usage framework a bit, but a lot of things I didn't know, and I tried out to dive into this project. And so that's what also brought you some recent visual features like shiny icons, better separation of the states, like, where you not just have a yellow bar and then it says failed or passed, but actually red and green. Heiko?
Yes. So when you talk about the QM dashboard, is
Uh-huh.
that the blocked state one?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Mhm.
well, but I don't want to show it. Uh, I can show in the pull request because I also put in some screenshots in there. So, for example, what I can show is color-coded status badges and icons. So probably you have
Yeah.
seen that. So
I've
what?
seen that. I just wanted to express my appreciation of that because I think you never announce or advertise that a lot, not even in our
Mhm.
coordination calls. But I saw these things happening, and I wonder what is the push behind that.
Right. So the push behind that is basically the support for the Gitty source code hosting. And as a consequence of that, what we need to do is separate what is a smelt-based or IBS incident and a Gitty pull request. Because so far, I mean, for many months, this is now showing up and supported. But a problem is that so far or in the old version, there's just a number, and you just need to know, like,
Mhm.
okay, low number is very likely a Gitty pull request, high number means smelt. Eventually, we will have a collision, and we need to prevent that. So this is why QMBot and QM dashboard needs to be adjusted to be able to clearly separate the type in every single communication so that it's unique. And uh, as I said, my Christmas vacation fun project was into basically bring in some colors. It's just taking a bit longer time. So this is why some features were only deployed now, because I want to give people the opportunity for a code review of that.
Thank you very
So
much.
yeah, welcome. And some of those features are actually also what you, Heiko, already asked for like a year ago, to better visualize the priority. We had this yellow ribbon background already since longer, but now it's also displaying the numbers, and then people can see where, there's a cutoff between, okay, this is like 1000 or 700, and then comes something like with 50, which is lower priority. And one thing which was personally annoying to me, this is part of the, when I review test results on a daily basis, just to see is everything working as expected, and then there's some announcements like this update is important today or that update is important. I'm also taking a look myself. Is everything running smoothly, or is there something which is broken and we should fix on our side? And I found that where there was only a yellow box up here, where you could only separate by text if it says passed, failed, or waiting. And now with the color and the icon, which shows also accessibility, that should be, yeah. So on the first glimpse, you can see that, okay, there's something actually there's waiting or failed and not just passed. So you don't need to read the text, just look at fancy icons. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is actually a real usability improvement. By the way, there is also a dark mode now, and yeah, fancy side features that did come in. If you're interested in what is planned to come next, then there, there are multiple other parts. So, for example, there's one thing here which is basically just a rename. In some cases, we already call the things by a more generic term, which is submissions, rather than incidents, because not everything that we get from Gitty is an incident. In particular, if you think again about the product development staging pull request, doesn't make sense to call a pull request there an incident, but that's how it would be called right now in QM dashboard. So we rename that. So this is a separate pull request because it's a huge change, but more or less trivial, just renaming the term. But then built on top, I built in more features. So one thing is implement a fallback priority for GTPRs on /blocked. I know that from Smelt, we could also retroactively get the information, what is an actual priority for a GDPR-based maintenance update. But as long as we don't have that, or for whatever reason, when we might not have that, this is basically just sorting unprioritized submissions in the middle between high priority items and the ones where we explicitly know that those are low priority. So this will come. And then I also looked into Swagger and Open API. So that's the QM dashboard, which does have an API, which might also be helpful for other developers to build tooling upon. Also has a fancy UI to explain the API as well as provide validation based on, it says JSON here, but meanwhile that's a YAML document which should be very much highly maintainable. And of course, this is like a given. I'm building in an MCP endpoint, so you can also instruct your Gemini or other AI assistant to connect to QM dashboard and do something like list all submissions blocked by tests on QM dashboard, and then it just shows you something like this, and then you can interface with that. So coming back, increase coverage, support OBS migration to Git backend. Yeah, so then we have some changes related to the move, the Prague 1 data center move, which I mentioned, and that also always gives an opportunity to clean out old unused stuff. For example, in Prague 1 data center, since many years, the situation was more or less unchanged, and then of course, some resources which are there, which are actually unused, turn up, as well as some resources which are not necessary anymore. One prominent example being that we had our own DHCP and also DNS server in the Prague 1 office data center, and that one by now is also shut off, and because it should not be needed anymore. Also, the support migration of QACP workers. So sometimes we have ticket which says something like support. What support migration means that, okay, while we are not the loaner of the machine, a lot depends on us to either prepare network configuration or support people when they set it up themselves and improve them. And then something which is less technical, I did a squad rotation, which I very much appreciate. So thanks and shout outs to the QAC squad who hosted me for my squad rotation already in summer vacation time last year. I'd bundle up my experiences and some cleanup as a consequence. This is why it was taking a bit longer. We already received multiple new members to the squads, which are now having fun getting onboarded and providing more features or fixing broken infrastructure within our teams, which is great. But also we have, I think, we can see like some members mentioned here. Oh yeah, Liv is going on a squad rotation, or currently is already. So she's now also having fun in QAC. Yep, that's about it. Any questions for the resolved tasks before we go into the plan? If not, then let's go back to the current plan. I already shared the top level view. So then we can take a look into, actually, I would like to do this team by team. So in the dev backlog, what we have planned to come up next is we would like to, this is an older ticket, we would like to basically clean up some older tasks which were long-standing, which should now be easier to achieve. We are working on this Saga for AI support a little bit, but it's like, it's not the priority on the team right now, but this is what I can understand also motivates the teams. So this is why we have something like OpenQA listed as Cloud Connector here. There's also another ticket about having the OpenQA MCP listed on other platforms, which basically are a catalog of MCP supported services. We had this automatic enforcement of strict and warning support in OpenQA, and now we want to make sure that the code in Osado is actually enforced one way or another. So either by bringing in the according header or by using this use more modern Perl features, because that actually prevents problems that we do see in tests executed in production and only very late because Perl warnings are not addressed properly up front. There's a need to address the security design. This is for compliance reason, but also in general to be on a to have a secure system, because what we should have is a proper security design, like a top level document describing the approach of multiple features which are already supported in OpenQA. So think about the worker with AppArmor enabled profiles or SE Linux preventing some code to be executed, but still from test code, which can come in from external distributions, you can have a lot of power, but then test code is only executed within the VMs, and all that are certain implications, certain possibilities, but also restrictions to govern that. And we are slowly looking out for OpenSUSE conference contributions as well. There is a problem with the O3 S390 tests in the O3 infrastructure, so we want to look into that. And I'm missing some features here, but maybe they show up on the QA infra backlog. So let's take a look into the QA infra backlog. There seems to be a problem, probably again, maybe a regression again that I introduced, is that the QM dashboard does not seem to update content using MQP messages. So this is why you see only very much delayed an update, like, on the /blocked page, you would see something in a blue box, meaning unfinished jobs, and those should automatically update without a need of a background job which runs like every half an hour to update entries, should update based on MQP messages. That doesn't seem to happen. So, and thanks to Ricardo Branco for mentioning or for observing that, which I did verify. I recorded a video where I left the browser open and I could see in one tab that OpenQA tests turned from a blue favicon circle to a green check mark. So tests actually ended successfully, but QM dashboard in the main tab never showed an update. So this is expected to be a regression. I will look into that. Then we Looking again into this still unfinished problem of kernel live badges, there's already a lot of support in QMBot. Apparently, it's not doing all what's necessary there. This is assigned to me. I will look into that and I will see what I can separate out as tasks for others to be worked on. What's workable here is that we need to do the upgrade to Leap 16.0. This was actually not a high priority task yet, but because we started and then this broke something on 2 machines already, that's why tickets like this one then have their priority turned up, and there was already some negative feedback, which I fully understand that this should have been better planned and announced. I agree with that. This is also why I already created 2 lessons learned ticket. One is related to this, and this is not, a problem of an individual, but really a team opportunity to learn and improve on our processes, so that no weird questions need to come up in chat. Is like, hey, why does this jobs behave like this? Or even worse, that services are completely unreachable. Heiko?
Yeah, I've one question here. So how do you keep track of all these stakeholders that are basically using these machines in the one way or the other?
So that's, I would say, mostly really a question related to this QM host, which is a single machine. So one thing which I can already tell you is something that we will come up in this lessons learned is like, okay, so we kind of inherited this machine from many years ago when QA SLE and QA maintenance departments were merged, and then people joined QA Tools team because there were, tools here and tools there joined together. And now that machine's maintenance is on our plate, but nobody in our team is using no, we are not using all the services on that machine. For example, there's the template generator output, which is there, as well as the QM dashboard. We take care of the QM dashboard, but so far we didn't take care of Terragen, and there was no need. And this is mostly done by update validation with good success. So this is really specific to this machine. In other cases, I would say either machines are loaned to known owners. This is tracked in Netbox, and then it's very clear that people use that machine, and we don't interfere. We basically just provide the groundworks, the infrastructure. Machine is reachable over network, and then you go. Or it's services that we fully and properly monitor for the, let's say, the scope of open QA domain users, be it test developers as well as test reviewers. And then the scope is basically everybody that you can reach over the engineering testing channel. Does this make sense?
Yeah, to some degree. So let's say that you get a new machine that you want to deploy with services that you hadn't before.
Yes.
How would you then document for your team, for the infra team, what is running there and who is using that?
I would say I cannot think of a generic approach. That needs to be handled case by case depending on the service. I mean, the thing is that mostly we want to do work that does not impact our stakeholders and users in any negative way. So as soon as a service is unavailable, this is something which we should have prevented. And this is also what happened here with the upgrade. So I would say it's less important to reach out to everyone involved here and tell them about an upcoming downtime when actually we expect that there's no significant or visible downtime whatsoever, and we just prevent that from happening, or we are very much quicker than anyone realizing by receiving and monitoring alert, and then we say, oh, we roll back the last action and nobody will notice. Does that sound acceptable?
Yeah, I mean that's a blue sky scenario. So because there's always a residual risk that it breaks entirely, maybe for reasons that you cannot control, right? Like a power failure or something somewhere.
Yes.
So in that case, I think just having the stakeholders informed that you plan to do that and you plan to have a very short, even not noticeable downtime, I mean, it's still a good thing.
Yes, and what I would like to ensure is that we have a clearly defined communication channel to all the relevant stakeholders. So for example, for OpenGA OpenSUSE org, we have a public matrix chat room as well as the OpenSUSE factory room. And I am asking the team to be present there and monitor this channel. So if somebody is saying like, hey, something's weird there, not even directly addressing us, that we proactively would react. And the same for SUSE internal. So all services that we provide, the main entry point for communication would be the engineering testing channel on Slack. So that this is where we would write announcements as well as we would monitor for those. It's not like somebody would address us as like, you broke something. Maybe people don't know that we broke something. They ask, this is looking weird. And then we proactively address that because I asked the team to monitor that and address it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So ensure up-to-date entries for Prague 1, Prague 3 moved machines. So you can see that by those entries, while we do the move, afterwards, I envision that there is some leftover and some work that needs to be tidy up. And this is also why we have tasks like that, so that we go over all the entries in Netbox after maybe some people outside QA Infra actually did the migration. But what I want to ensure is that we have a consistent view of our inventory after that, so that whenever any questions come up in the upcoming weeks or years, we have a properly maintained source of truth. And for SUSE infrastructure, our source of truth is a Netbox. We are not having any external spreadsheets or anything like that. Related to that, I also want us to cross-check which machines which are marked as unused in rec tables, or in that case, updated. This, so you can see by the name, this was a bit older, but the use case is the same, that we want to track machines which are marked as unused in our inventory system if they still draw power and raise that as an alert. Because as they should not be powered on and wasting significant power at all, this one is targeted Nuremberg 2 as a starting point, and we would extend that concept to other areas. Let's see, I will take a look into the in progress section. So we see, or is it actually in feedback? Yes, I mentioned these two features about disambiguating Gitty and smelt incidents, which we need to do to prevent an ID collision, as well as ordering Gitty PRs. Well, if you like, I can also, actually, I would say this is a low priority task, but it's already pretty near to completion anyway. And I would say that's about it. Yep. Any questions about the upcoming plan, the roadmap that we have here?
I haven't heard much, or probably I was not
Yeah.
about QM bot in specific. So you mentioned something about QM dashboard, but QM bot itself, is there
Yes,
any
so the
task
disambiguate
planned?
Gitty and smelt incidents in QM-bot and QM dashboard, that's in both. Then related to that, what Gabriele was working on is implementing a basic regex validation for metadata, because the metadata project already changes on a daily base, and we have some regexes in there, and this already broke once, that QMBot was not able to process any configuration anymore because yeah.
Sorry, you're showing me tickets in feedback. I'm asking about Planet work for
Okay,
QM,
fine.
QMBot.
So right now this is QM dashboard. this one, kernel live patches. That one needs, this is QMBot work. Okay.
Mm.
And what else is, there's nothing in workable, and the reason is because there are multiple tickets in blocked. So let me highlight which ones are related to QMBot. This and this epic.
Yeah,
this
but
one
epics
here.
are naturally in block. Doesn't mean anything.
Okay, fine. So we'll focus only on action items. So CI checks on Gitty for all SLFO Gitty PRs based on MQ and Gitty AMQP messages, as in properly monitor MQP messages to trigger an update and not pull recurrently, which is quite heavy also on the CI job infrastructure. The wrong OpenGate jobs referenced in QMBot Inc. approve. And then there should be this one ticket that you picked up, wasn't it?
Yeah, in
So
progress. Okay.
It's in progress. I see. Yeah. So yeah, so there are 2 tickets in blocked, and the size of these QE infra backlog is already, the limit is actually 50 tickets. We are already over the limit. There would be multiple more which are blocked, but in next, and we would pull in as soon as we are able to finish some of QMBot's work. Like, for example, if you are able to finish one of your QMBot tickets, or I'm able to finish some, then immediately I would pull in some more related for something like, actually I can see if I can find those. So you can see in next, there are a lot of Leap 16.0 upgrade tickets. And then there are here, ensure that QMBot can take both config dirs as well as files, and don't trigger tests for Q-core approve for updates on non-slash repositories. And there should be more about looking at clone jobs and not looking at development job groups in product increments tests. I know there are somewhere, might be also in blocked. Yeah, here. This one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So multiple more QMBot related tickets that we will follow up in midterm. Okay?
Okay. Thank
Cool.
you.
So thank you guys. Let's stop here. And I already saw today that Yanis is well prepared for one of the next sessions, OpenQA MCP, how to use OpenQA with AI agents. That one will happen on the 6th of March. So in 1 month from now, Yanis, unless you want to shift around that, I would also be okay with that. Otherwise, the next topic would be to present the resolved work that we did in this saga about reliable and resilient QA infrastructure management. Until then, see you and goodbye.